Hello and welcome to It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi. Joining me today is Craig Patterson, who is the editor-in-chief and founder of Retail Insider magazine, one of Canada's leading, if not leading, retail news publications, online publications. Craig is also a frequent commentator nationally on national media outlets regarding the retail sector. Thanks for joining us today, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, just an open-ended question, Craig. You've got your foot on the street, so to speak, and ear to the ground out there. How bad has this COVID pandemic been for the retail sector in Canada?
It's been pretty bad. Obviously not for grocery stores that have been able to stay open during this time, as well as pharmacy. Granted, they saw some reduced revenue with increased costs, but for retailers that were forced to close, in some cases, this has been, temporarily that is, this has been quite catastrophic. I did a tally in January showing that about, more than 1,000 store locations would be closing permanently in Canada. We were seeing some retailers that were already struggling, all those shoes, for example, financially, that is, in terms of their balance sheets. And now what I think we're seeing with COVID-19 is an acceleration of some of the challenges that retailers were already having in terms of finances. And now we're seeing a fairly substantial number of bankruptcy filings. Now, this doesn't mean that the retailers necessarily will be going away, but some will, and others are restructuring. I was told that most retailers in this country have taken on a bit of a restructuring. It doesn't mean that they necessarily filed, but they're certainly looking at their operations. So this is really accelerating a lot of the challenges that we've already seen in the industry, but at the same time are also, sinking or at least causing incredible struggles for retailers that unfortunately had been profitable before. So
Yeah.
This has been a really, really, really challenging time for so many retailers right now.
So almost every day we hear of closures, right? And chain closures. Um, as we look forward, do you see that a continuation of that trend of are we going to see more and more closures still?
I think so, unfortunately. Now, granted, I should say that some retailers are starting to see some pretty strong numbers, especially high-end retailers, interestingly enough.
Hmm.
In Calgary, Holt Renfrew's sales numbers are pretty decent, and the Chanel boutique is, I think, doing quite well overall in terms of sales, which is quite surprising, given that there isn't a whole lot of places necessarily to go out and wear this stuff.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, what I'm thinking, and having talked to brokers, landlords, retailers, is we are starting to see closures in the summer here. At the same time, there are government supports which have helped keep businesses afloat for now. But when those supports go away, I think we're going to see more closures. So into the fall, I think we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more bankruptcy filings, some household name retailers. From there, we're going to see the December holiday shopping season, which some retailers will look to hopefully recoup some losses, maybe keep operational. But depending on things such as second waves, we don't know where that's going to go. And I think January of 2021 is going to be an absolute bloodbath. I think we're going to see an incredible number of store closures in Canada, probably the most that we've seen in our lifetimes in such a short period of time. And I think we're going to start to see a rebirth in retail in a new form, which should be more online and more experiential showrooms. One example I think is an interesting business model is Dyson, which will be opening at CF Chinook Center in Calgary at some point. I have to find out the date. Very much what that is a showroom experience. You go and learn about the product, and Dyson has a whole bunch of wholesale accounts everywhere, from department stores to big box multi-brands, and people will buy that. So it could be an interesting time for multi-brand retailers. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
What do you think the key trends are emerging right now because of the COVID?
There's a few. In terms of retail and key trends, certainly a shift online. I think we're working on a report right now about online shopping doubling. Given Amazon's prominence and growth in Canada, I think that the numbers would actually be substantially higher in terms of people shopping online. Amazon has really pulled through with this. The growth that we were seeing, I'm doing a study for a litigation file right now on the side, and we were looking at Amazon's growth in the United States and Canada. It's been incredible. So really, this online shift is something that we're seeing. We're seeing other things like, you know, curbside pickup, for those that are, say, ordering online. Stores themselves are, I don't know if this is a trend, but they're reducing their hours. There's increased sanitization.
Mhm.
Employees are having to do some cleaning quite often, which I don't know if it's sitting so well for some, but, you know, they were hired to be, you know, cleaners. They're there to sell, but this is a unique time. So, I mean, trends moving forward, I think it's going to be probably fewer retail stores. The stores that do remain will be better stores, hopefully, if they want to survive anyways. And I think that we're going to see cross-channel shopping where there will be still physical retail spaces, but a lot of retail, I think, is going to be shifting into the digital world.
So there's going to be a lot of space, physical space opening up. Well, not going to be, has opened up already. What do you think malls are going to do to compensate for growing empty spaces in the malls?
Yeah, that's going to be tough because I think there are going to be quite a few vacancies. I would suspect in the short term that spaces would become animated with other uses, perhaps. There may be more pop-up retail. Brands may be able to showcase certain things for a shorter period of time in locations. And that's just in the A malls. You know, the CF Chinooks, the Market, the CF Market Mall in Calgary and beyond, the Yorkdales in Toronto. The B and C malls, I think, are really going to struggle if they start losing a lot of tenants. I was looking, there's an sort of an outlet mall, I guess you would call it, in Windsor, Ontario, where uh, it's almost going to be empty by the end of this, and that was already happening. Should have
Wow.
a story on that maybe if they'll talk. I mean, it's not the best news. I did a study for Retail Council of Canada last year where we looked at shopping centers and what landlords were planning on doing. And what I thought was really fascinating is in all kinds of markets, we were seeing landlords looking at basically redeveloping their centers already. So
Yeah.
they were looking at adding housing and office. We'll see how that goes. Other uses, you know, parks, even creating complete communities. And I'm thinking that COVID-19 may also accelerate that trend towards redevelopment because we're not seeing a huge slowdown in housing in most parts of Canada. You know, it
Yeah.
ebbs and flows a bit depending on the economy in certain regions. You know, Alberta's been soft, but nevertheless, housing is still hot. In Toronto, real estate prices are going up right now. I don't get it. Rents have stabilized. We've got a lot of condos coming onto market, but I mean, the condo development in Toronto has been astronomical. It's the fastest growing region and city in North America as of last year.
Yeah.
Vancouver's seen a softening, but nevertheless, I think demand for real estate is for residential real estate is actually going to drive in many markets the redevelopment of shopping center properties. And it's not to say that there won't be retail on those sites. There would be, but it may be more localized retail as well as more services and other uses that would be appropriate more to the local community as opposed to trying to be a draw for a broader regional population, which in many cases, in many markets in Canada, you know, there is probably too much retail space. If you
Yeah.
think about it, from big box centers to strip mall shopping centers, there's just a lot of retail space. So I think there's going to be a real estate creativity coming down the pipeline as well. It's going to be really interesting, and there's going to be a lot of construction jobs, I think.
Yeah, quite interesting. One last question for you, Craig. When you look at consumers these days and their spending, where do you think that's headed? Are they likely to keep their money in their wallets these days, or is there a lot of pent up demand that they want to get out and spend again?
You know, I think it really depends on the consumer segment. What I find interesting is I spoke to a few very high end retailers, particularly Toronto, Vancouver, and we got some sales numbers from Calgary. There's a segment of the wealthy population that's just out shopping right now. They're not traveling, say, I don't know, to their home in the French Riviera.
Yeah,
Uh, they're treating themselves by making purchases. So some of these luxury stores that I've spoken to are saying that uh, in some cases they're seeing the highest sales that they've seen in a long time, or for newer ones that they've ever seen ever.
amazing.
And that blows me away. But for you know, more of the what we might call the middle class, which I think is shrinking, I think this is going to be a time of some less consumption. We've seen quite a few job losses, unfortunately. We don't know when those are going to come back. Very often what we see with recessionary periods or periods of struggles like this is a move to be a little bit more conservative with spending, because the question is, is money going to run out? What's going to happen in the future? With that uncertainty, for some, will lead to, a bit more, spending being pulled back, saving more would be important, or just dealing with debt. We've seen record high
Yeah.
debt levels among Canadians, right? So that's going to be a challenge. But a certain segment of the population, at the same time, loves to spend, even if they don't have a lot of money. There's this term revenge spending, which is something where people will come out and say, "Oh, I've been cooped up. I just need to go do something fun," and they're going to go out and splurge, or maybe even stock up for a second wave that could see spending and certain necessities increase. And at the lower end, or in terms of those that are of a lower income, already I think spending to a degree was a challenge, certainly for some.
Yeah.
Depending on their financial situation, it really remains to be seen. But right now, it seems like high-end retail is winning. At the same time, you look at stores like, say, Winners around the country, lineups to get into those stores, and then bare shelves. And it's not like the Target situation. This is because everybody bought everything, and they can't stock it fast enough because it's everybody's buying it. So certainly, I think that in the long run, what we're going to see is a real polarization in retail in Canada, where the value priced retailers are still going to be very popular. You're going to have your Dollaramas, TJX Group, Winners, Marshalls, et cetera, that are at that comfortable price point for many. Canadians do still like a bargain, many of them, but at the same time, high-end retail, I think, is really fascinating in terms of luxury and how that's grown in Canada, and how that seems to continue to be doing quite well. Vancouver's been a bit more of a challenge in terms of the demographic. They did rely a lot on tourism, and that in itself is going to be a challenge for major markets, say including Banff, which do rely on tourists for retail sales. This will be a challenging time for some, but nevertheless, what I think is interesting about some of these retailers is, even when stores were closed, they were reaching out to their consumers through apps and texting on mobile phones, and really engaging with them. And it's almost like we're seeing that person-to-person marketing. Is it MLM? They call it. It's almost like we're seeing that, but we're seeing sales associates doing that, where they're dealing one-on-one with their client base. So I guess it goes to show that to be a good salesperson, at least certainly in the high-end range, having a good personality and working hard is really important. And some of these employees will do quite well if they're paid on commission. So I mean, it's going to be a really interesting few months. There's a lot of uncertainties. Are we going to have a second wave? Is anything else going to happen in society that we're not expecting yet? It just seems like 2020 is a really crazy year. This week we had tsunami warnings in Alaska. I mean, that was pretty much right on brand. I don't know where the murder hornets went, but if you look at 2020 generally,
2020 is a bit of a write-off for most.
this is absolutely. I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, at this point, nothing surprises me. Kanye West says he wants to run for president. I mean, the world has basically gone insane, and retail, to a degree, has to react to that. So. It's going to be a really interesting few months to see how this goes, and I've always said this in a lot of things that I've TV webinars that we do. I've said, retailers, everyone just be strong. I think that this is going to be one of those times in our lives where we're learning lessons, that we're in this next transformation. I'm seeing, artificial intelligence firms working diligently to bring in new technology, which could again transform the world. So I think that we are in an acceleration phase right now that we did not really expect to happen this quickly. And in the end, I think things will be okay. And I think that the world will move forward, very, very progressively and quickly. And that's quite exciting. So it's one of those stay tuned types of situations, right?
Okay, super. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Craig.
Thank you so much for having me, Mario.
Okay, great. That was Craig Patterson, who is the editor-in-chief and founder of Retail Insider Magazine, the national publication online. This has been It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi. Thanks for joining us today.